Where is the original Injil of Jesus Christ, the one he himself was preaching? Not what Paul said, not what Matthew said, not what Mark or Thomas or Mary Magdalene and Judas, not these people. What Jesus himself said. Where is that Injil? Number one, what language was it in? Where is the original Torah? Where is the original Torah of Moses? What language was it in? If you do not possess the original works of Jesus and Moses, then what gospel are you talking about? Why do we have to accept Tom, Dick, the gospel of Tom, the gospel of Dick, the gospel of Harry, the gospel of Murphy, the gospel of George, the gospel of, the list goes on, and the gospel of someone who the gospel of someone who laughs like a monkey. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, the point is, this is a joke. This is a joke. This is a joke. Seriously. Okay. The Quran is very consistent. The original Torah of Moses, the original gospel or Injil. I won't even use the word gospel. The Quran is not saying gospel. The Quran is saying Injil, the message of Jesus. It's called Injil. The Quran doesn't say gospel or evangelion. It says Injil, right? So now my questions, keep them in mind and watch him ignore. Go ahead, your time. And I'm not going to interrupt.
Okay, all right. So his questions, you just have to wait for you to keep going on these monologues. Listen, he made a big mistake. He just said, it talks about Injil, not gospel. Wait. Injil, he already affirmed, is an Arabic word for evangelion, which is Greek for gospel. He can't get out of this. And it's singular, meaning good news. So that's refuted. Second point, he said, made it very, very clear. He was like, oh, it's only the original. First of all, show me where it says original in the Quran. It doesn't say that. He adds to his deen. He does bid'ah and he innovates. Second of all, in the Arabic, and scholars will tell you this, Ma bayna yadayhi, it confirms what is in their hands. The hands of the Jews and of the Christians at the time of Muhammad. It affirms what they were reading, the Injil and the Torah in between their hands. That is what it says in your Arabic. And there are Muslims that will tell you this because they're honest. But he can't tell you that. And even if you go into the Arabic, it will say quite clearly, it's in between their hands. Not some mysterious original, thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. The Quran makes it clear. It believes it is confirming the Injil and the Gospel. He then made a big, he went on a big, he won't answer this question. What was it originally written in? The original Injil was written in Greek, just like how you borrowed the word from Greek. Yes. So thank you very much. And he's like, oh, it can't be Greek because Jesus, are you going to say Jesus didn't speak Greek? How do you know that? Tell me that from the Quran. The Quran doesn't say that. It says that they only sent prophets to speak in their home language. This was a Hellenized region. Jesus would have spoke Greek as well as Aramaic. And just like that, his points have been refuted. He doesn't have anything else. He depends on scholarship that is fringe. Most scholars, Bar Ehrman would say the Injil is Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. N.T. Wright would say the Injil is Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Gary Habermas would say that the Injil is Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Show me any secular atheist. Richard Carrier would say the Gospel is Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Show me anyone else who would say, no, it's not. It's the Gospel of Barnabas, it's the Gospel of Thomas, it's the infancy Gospel of James, anything like that. Show me the scholars who support your views.
In the study of philology, the term al-Injil in the Qur'an is not an original Arabic word. It is a direct loan from the Greek euangelion, a term used by Hellenistic Christian communities since the 1st century. Through the intermediary of Syriac, where it appears as euangelion, the term entered pre-Islamic Arabic and eventually found its place in the Qur'anic text as al-Injil. Both linguistically and historically, its Greek origin is undisputed among scholars. The Quran's use of a Greek term carries significant historical implications. Jesus did indeed understand and could use Greek. Galilee was a bilingual region, and his encounters with non-Jews, such as the Syro-Phoenician woman, took place within a Hellenistic cultural context. Even so, Greek was not his primary language, nor the language of first-century Jewish communities, nor the language of liturgy or divine revelation in Israel. Jesus taught in Aramaic and read the scriptures in Hebrew, making it strikingly unusual for a divine revelation, according to Islam, given to a Jewish rabbi to bear a Greek name, the language of the Hellenistic world rather than the sacred language of Judaism. This reveals that the Qur'anic concept of the Injil does not arise from the historical world of Jesus, but reflects the influence of Greek-speaking Christian tradition that had developed long before Islam emerged. The contradiction becomes clear when Muslim polemicists ask, in what language was the original gospel of Jesus? The question does not align with Islam's own framework, for they reject the Greek Christian Gospels yet rely on a Greek term to define the very revelation they claim came from God. They demand a gospel in Aramaic or Hebrew, yet the Quran adopts a Greek name. This inconsistency exposes that the Quranic notion of the Injil is built upon terminology that, by their own argument, belongs to a tradition they consider corrupt. More troubling still is that Islamic tradition cannot produce historical evidence for the existence of a distinct Gospel of Jesus. There is no manuscript, no preserved oral tradition, no quotations, and no testimony from early Jewish Christian communities indicating that Jesus ever received a written book from God. In first-century Judaism, rabbis, teachers, and prophets did not receive books descending from heaven. They taught orally and interpreted the scriptures already in circulation.
So, ladies and gentlemen, did you see him ignore my questions? Yes?
Did
he answer my question?
I literally answered it.
Did he answer my question? Wait, stop my
answered
time. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris ignored my questions because they are devastating for Christianity. When they claim something comes from Jesus and they don't know. They don't know what language Jesus spoke. Tell him to present the evidence that we have evidence that this is the language Jesus spoke. Evidence. Remember the word evidence. When he claims Jesus spoke Aramaic or Greek, evidence. If there is no evidence, there's nothing. Likewise, what language did Moses speak? The Qur'an mentions the Injil and the Torah. So the Qur'an cannot possibly be referring to what they possess as the four Gospels, because the Qur'an doesn't mention the four Gospels. The Qur'an mentions the Torah, the law of the Jews, and the message of Jesus Christ, which is Injil, the original message. And now how do we find it? The Qur'an tells us how to find it. When the Qur'an says that what they possess, the Qur'an means that there are remnants of the truth. We still believe that whatever is contained within the Gospels and in Torah, there are remnants of truth. There are true verses there that can be found that were originally given by Moses and Jesus. We have no doubt in that. We are quite consistent. We don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Brother, don't show me anything. I'm talking. Okay, wait. Okay. So we don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. You know why? You know why? Because we are very consistent. We're not like these extremists. We're not like these extremists. We don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. We're not blind. We look into the Gospels and we take them seriously. The Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Luke. I believe when the Gospel of Mark attributes the words to Jesus Christ, that he said to a Jewish man, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." We believe that. We believe that Jesus said that. We believe that. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, do we believe other parts of the Gospels? Absolutely not, because they cannot be attributed to Jesus Christ. Time up. Go ahead.
Right, first of all, his first point. Oh, how do you know that Jesus spoke Greek and Aramaic? Simple, the actual gospel accounts themselves attested that he probably did. Why? Because he spoke with people, Pontius Pilate, who was a Roman who would have only known Greek or Latin. Yes. The best explanation for this is that Jesus also knew Greek. Simple. Right. Second of all, it was a Hellenized region for hundreds of years. To be Hellenized means that you would have been owned by the Romans or the Greeks, and that would have meant that you would have most likely have spoken Greek. Brilliant, refuted. Then he goes, forget what I just said about all these other Gospels possibly being the Injil. Let's pretend that actually Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the Injil. Yeah, we believe that some parts of it are the Injil. He just contradicted himself. He just spent the earlier part of the debate telling you it wasn't the Injil, and the Gospel of Thomas is the Injil. And now he's saying, actually, they are the Injil, but they've been corrupted. That's a different claim. He's just told you two separate things. So thank you for affirming that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the Injil the Quran talks about, but they have been corrupted. That's a different claim from saying that the Gospel of Thomas is actually the Injil. Now, is this going to help him? No, it's not going to help him. Why is it not going to help him? Because the idea that the Injil was corrupted is not to be found in your Quran. First and foremost, it's bidah. Second of all, the idea that it's corrupted, you have to explain when it was corrupted. Was it corrupted before Muhammad, in which case Muhammad confirmed a corrupted book? Or was it corrupted after Muhammad, in which case we can check the earliest manuscripts to know what Muhammad would have known? And we can refute you because they say exactly what our Bibles say today.
Right. When a Muslim demands proof that Jesus spoke Aramaic or Greek, the demand itself reveals a misunderstanding of the linguistic reality of first-century Palestine. Scholars overwhelmingly agree that Aramaic was the primary language of the Jewish people at that time, having become the lingua franca since the Babylonian exile and remaining dominant into the time of Jesus. All major Jewish sources, Mishnah, Talmud, and the writings of Josephus, affirm Aramaic as the language of daily life, while Hebrew functioned mainly as a liturgical language. This is why the Gospels preserve several of Jesus' words exactly as he spoke them in Aramaic, Talitha cum, Ephatha, Abba, and Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. These untouched phrases stand as clear historical evidence that Jesus taught and spoke in Aramaic. At the same time, the possibility that Jesus understood and occasionally used Greek is also supported by historical evidence. First-century Palestine was deeply influenced by Hellenism, and Greek served as the language of trade and Roman administration. Galilee, where Jesus was raised, stood near Sepphoris, a major Greek cultural center. It is highly likely that Jesus and his family had contact with this bilingual environment. His interactions with non-Jews, such as the Roman centurion and the Greek Syro-Phoenician woman, also took place within a social setting where Greek functioned as a common bridge language. The demand for direct proof of Jesus' spoken languages ignores the reality that no figure from the first century, Jewish or Roman, left audio recordings or personal diaries documenting their everyday speech. What we have are social patterns, cultural practices, and linguistic traces preserved in ancient texts, all pointing to a firm conclusion. Jesus lived, taught, and ministered in an Aramaic-speaking world, with the likely ability to use Greek when necessary. This conclusion rests not on speculation, but on historical evidence. Ironically, when Muslims question the language of Jesus, they often overlook that the Qur'an itself uses a term of Greek origin, euangelion, absorbed into Arabic as al-Injil. They reject the Greek Gospels of Christianity while simultaneously relying on a Greek word to describe the revelation they claim was given to Jesus. They insist the true gospel must have been in Aramaic or Hebrew, yet the Quran identifies it with a term rooted not in the Jewish world of Jesus, but in the Hellenistic Christian world.